Hi, family. My name's Larry, and I'm an addict. And I'm grateful to be here today, and I'm humbled by the speakers that spoke before me. I don't know if I have anything to share. I just kind of sat back and was stunned. I have had to leave a couple of times. Um, my dog got in a knife fight with a wasp this morning, and so he's out in the other room whining at me. But I am grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be a member of Narcotics Anonymous. And thanks for asking me. In a matter of clarification, I uh, I did not grow up in San Jose. I graduated from Willow Glen High School in San Jose, but I was late in coming there. I was part of the foster care programs, and I wound up in a foster care home there. And I'm going to start with a little bit about myself. I'm nervous as shit. I don't like this stuff. Uh, and you know, I was born in the 1940s. I started using it in the late 1950s, and I quit in the middle of the 1980s. The rest is kind of filler. I shot them, snorted them, drank them, smoked them, stuffed them up my ass, put them in my eye. I did them any way I could do them to stay high. Uh, when I say I graduated from Willow Glen High School, when it was time for me to graduate from college many, many years later, they told me I needed my diploma stuff from my high school. And I had to call them and ask them if I graduated. Because, hey, it was 1966 and 1967, and San Francisco was just up the road. And I spent most of my time up there. And they said, yeah, you had enough points, so we graduated you. And I went along after San Francisco. I was still a bored 18-year-old boy, and I'd seen all the movies, so I enlisted in the Army and volunteered to go to, a galaxy far, far away, and fought in a war and came home from that war. That war did not make me an addict. I was already using before I went, but I came home crazier than a drunk Babylonian and hit the ground running. I remember going back home and saying, I need to score drugs, and someone saying, well, I know somebody that sells drugs. Let's go talk to him. And we went and talked to him, and he said, how much do you want? And I said, how much you got? Because that's the kind of addict I was. And I still had time to do in the Army, and so I went to Fort Benning and had a little trouble with authority figures there. And so they transferred me to Europe and had some more trouble with authority figures there, and got out and worked my way across the states. People say all the time, why did you go to Salt Lake City? There was a lady involved in that move. Uh, I'll just say that. And I came here and was still running and gunning. And I was not a big time criminal. My basic crime was being stupid in a no stupid zone, and writing checks with my mouth that my ass couldn't cover. And I never thought it was going to be any different. And I my bottom came in an abandoned building here in town. I had the 45 automatic that I always carried and the clothes on my back. And I knew I couldn't do it anymore. Something inside me broke. And that something inside me that broke probably saved my life early on. I called the only man I knew that was clean. He was another Vietnam vet that was a friend of mine that helped me with the disagreements or the misunderstandings with the law enforcement agencies. And I called him and I kicked in his basement. And when I got done, he took me up to the local VA hospital and threw me out and said, this box of parts used to be a human being. Maybe you can make him work again. And I can't knock any kinds of treatment, I went through that treatment and they gave me information I didn't have before. I didn't know that you could actually have a credit card in your own name. I knew how to run credit cards, but one in my own name, and I still was trapped in my disease. And I got out of there and I stayed abstinent, completely abstinent for 2 years. And at the end of that 2 years, my dog died. And I went down and used a liquid drug, picked up my gun and went looking for somebody. I don't know what I was doing. I was insane. And I ran into a man that I'd known on the street in the park. And I said, I hear you're clean. He said, yeah. And I said, how did you do it? And he said, well, I got something that works for me. It probably won't for you, but if you want to give it a try. And he gave me the regular Friday night meeting of Narcotics Anonymous, address and time. And up until they shut them down for the virus stuff, if you wanted to find me on a Friday night, I'd be at the regular Friday night meeting of Narcotics Anonymous. And I came in, our fellowship here in Salt Lake was very small. We didn't have home groups because all of us went to every meeting. You know, we didn't have any of the kinds of committees. We were just building them. And the Utah region had just formed. And I'm from the United Wasatch region. I call it the Uwana region. You want to get clean? We know how. And I came in and I got a sponsor. And he put me to work service, you know, and I started with the normal, you know, clean ashtrays, be a greeter. Once I was asked to make coffee. I don't drink coffee. I don't like coffee. I don't know how to make that shit. And it was so bad that they've never asked me to make coffee again anywhere. And I went through the service structure. My first commitment to subcommittees was to public information. And I worked on what back then was the Western States PI Learning Days. Now it's become the World Service Learning Days or whatever. And I enjoyed my work. I agree that public information is very good. And for a while, a man I sponsored was the H&I chair, and we worked very well together. I would find us a place, and we would go, and I'd tell him who we are, and then he would tell him what we could do for him. And it worked really well. And we decided we needed to open a meeting at the prison. One bit of advice: if you're going out to the prison to meet with the prison officials, make sure they've cleared that last warrant off your record. The guy that was head of the H&I committee went out and they kept his ass. And you know, that was how it worked then. But I did public information for a number of years. And at the bottom line, public information, I printed schedules. That was it. I printed flyers and we hung flyers, you know. And I didn't get involved with hospitals and institutions. My sponsor had suggested that I not, because let me back up real quick for 1 second. I came to my first meeting heavily armed, heavily medicated, and just marginally stable. That was in '86. And nobody got up in my face. That would not have ended well. I sat at the back, you know, did all that shit. And but about my third meeting, a group of 4 men came up to me and kind of got me with my back against the wall and got around me, and they said, "You're dying, and we can help. If you want what we got, listen to what we say and do what we do." And I was never treated badly. Even I was treated with respect even when I didn't deserve respect. And I'm real grateful for the fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous back then. And I'm grateful for it today. And so I just kept busy. I'm a busy sucker. I've been through our service structure, area chair, on and on and on, region. My only on commitments for service is, can I do it without a resentment? If I can do it without a resentment, then I need to do it. If I can't do it without a resentment, then I need to look at what that resentment is and why I've done it. So I kept coming and kept coming, and it just was a simple thing. I went to an H&I subcommittee meeting. They had said that they needed people to sign up. It's to a list so they could call on us for speakers at different places. And I went there, and I, sat there, and while I was there, they said, "Larry, we need someone that will keep track of the literature for H&I. Would you be willing to do that?" And my home group by this time had 8 meetings a week, and I kept track of the literature for it, and I said, "Yeah, it'll be easy." And so I started keeping track of the literature. At the end, they voted me in, and then someone said, "Oh, by the way, the people that keep track of it is the vice chair of H&I. So you are now the vice chair of H&I, and that's a 2-year commitment because you're committing to be the chair next year." And 2 weeks later, the chair resigned, and so I got to be the H&I chair. And I'm not real good in those kind of structured things, you know. I'm much better uh, working straight out. And so anyway, I did that, and I did that, and I did that, and I found through the grapevine that no one could see if we had a prison meeting. We had some jail meetings were going okay, but we couldn't see. The main Utah State Prison is in our area, and so I looked around, and found out that the old prison coordinator had gotten sick, and it just fell apart. Hadn't been happening for a year. So I took that as a project, and just because I thought it was so important. And we got our meeting going again. And when the lockdown came, we actually were having 2 meetings. The inmates started a second meeting during the week because once a week wasn't enough for them. And we became members of a meeting where we took in the literature. That was our job. And then we were addicts in the meeting, you know, and I just loved it. I loved it. And as prison coordinator, the women came to me and said, you know, we're seeing women in our meetings for a year, 2 years, and we never see them in our outside meetings. And I said, well, why don't we go talk to the halfway house? You know, that made sense to me. And we went and talked to the halfway house, and they were happy. But then the H&I committee said we don't have resources to commit that. And this is something I wanted to tell you. A home group in Narcotics Anonymous can do what it feels like it can do to carry the message to the addict who still suffers. Our literature is great. It's very important that we get that message out there. But the message of hope is carried one addict to another. It's not carried because I send a book to you in the mail. It's carried because I walk through the gate and I say hi. You know, I don't know shit about shit, but I do know how to stay clean. And so anyway, they got the meeting going at the halfway house, and H&I said they couldn't commit. So I took it to my home group. And my home group voted that we would support this meeting. We would staff it. We would send the women that were going in to H&I to be cleared. We would buy the literature, and this would be a project for our home group. And I had done that once before with the street level detox. I went down and talked to them, and H&I at that time said, well, we can't support that meeting. And so it was a men's street level detox at the time. And but they would allow women to come in. So for a year, I would go 1 week and my wife would go the next week. And I can tell you this, her meetings were always better attended than mine. I don't know what that was about, you know. She claims it was about her, the message she carried. And I said, yeah, that's what it was about. But and then H&I picked it up, and it's been going for 20 years now. You know, as my recovery progressed, my attitudes changed. And I still learn stuff all the time. You know, I learn stuff from newcomers. And I'm passionate about carrying that message to the addicts. H&I is the way I do it structurally right now. But I'm that guy I'm sitting at the back of the wall with that guy that's still shaking and baking, you know, talking to him about, you know, you can get through this. Remember how bad you feel. You will never have to feel that bad again if you don't use. You know, I had a guy who's now gotten many years clean and is in service. I remember his first meeting. He just started rolling around and then puked on the floor. You know, I said, I think you just chose your home group. And I can say sometimes service in NA requires a mop and a bucket. I was back in Washington, in Maryland speaking, and a man there came up to me and said, I had on an NA t-shirt. I don't often wear NA t-shirts because I go out in public, even if it's just to the store on the way to an NA event. I am now representing Narcotics Anonymous to the public. And if I'm an asshole, that is what they're going to take away and remember about Narcotics Anonymous. And I am capable of being an asshole. I try to pull that in. But so I had one on because we were back there speaking, and he said, I love that. And I ran right up to my room, changed shirts, came down and said, you need to wash it. Here it is. He's about the same size as me. And he said, you really didn't give it to me? I said, can you imagine my story now includes, I gave an addict the shirt off my back. That's great. And, we're still friends. Uh, and, I met my current wife in the rooms. My first wife, when I came in, I was fired up. I admitted I was powerless, and then I wanted to carry the message to the addict who still suffered. We called them half steppers, the first half of the first step and the last half of the 12th step. And that didn't work real well. But I was fired up and I was going to make amends. And I called my ex wife and I said, "Darling, this is Larry. I just called to tell you that I'm sorry." And she said, "You sure are," and hung up. And I think that probably would have worked better if I'd have waited until I had some clean time under me. And today, she and I are friends. We had children together. We had 2 children. One of my children came to me and said they used to love to go to the bail bondsman's office at midnight because he had those big, the kind of couches you see out on the park strip saying free, take this. He had big couches like that, and they would search under the cushions for treasure. And I'm going, oh, what do you find under the cushion at midnight in the bail bondsman's office? And so I get these flashes sometimes, And my daughter, my oldest daughter, I have 5 children. I have 22 grandchildren. I have some great grandchildren and some great greats. There's, there's a lot of grandpas, a few they call great and a few they call great great. And but I met my wife in the rooms, and we were old timers when we got together. And I think I had 3 years and she had 2. But she's from Louisiana, walked into a room, there was a chair open beside me, and she said, "Hi, how all y'all doing? Is this seat taken?" She's from Louisiana. And Bill Fritz, you're lucky you weren't sitting beside me in that meeting because I'd have dumped you on the damn floor. So she could sit beside me. And we became friends. And she gave me this great thing. I had slept with a pistol either under my pillow or in my bed or on my bedside table since I'd come home from the war. And the first night we spent together, she came in and she said, "I want you to pick up that gun and kiss it, and then kiss me, because you're just about to decide who you're going to sleep with." I made the right choice. And we had a baby. Gentlemen, if you ever get a chance, I was there. I was the first person to hold that child. She was conceived in love. She was birthed in love because of the program of Narcotics Anonymous. And we named her Love. And of course, we're both old hippies too, but, we named her Love. And I went through all of her upbringing. She's 28 today and never seen me high. Does not know what a bail bondsman is. Has never been to the jail and put her hand up on the window, and I'm amazed by that. And yes, I've sold Girl Scout cookies and I've done all that kind of shit. It seemed like something that only citizens did. It wasn't for me. And, but it was. And my other daughter had followed me out there, and I would like to tell you, 1 second, please. I just wanted to make sure you will wave at me, David, when I have 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Anyway, my oldest daughter had followed me out there, and I'd had to cut her out of my life. I told her, I said, I'm tough as nails, but I can't read in the paper that you died. No, I paid for it. And she said, "Oh, no, it's not for drugs. It's for the rent." And I said, "I helped write that lie. Damn, show me some respect. I was telling that lie before you were even thought of." And she called me and said, "My old man died of a black tar overdose last night." And I was a spiritual giant. I said, "Good, saves me the trouble of killing you." And she got clean. And I would like to say she was experimenting with drugs, but as I said, she was walking a stroll to pay for the heroin. And she got clean and she went to another fellowship. And I said, "You're a stone cold junkie. What are you going to another fellowship for?" She said, "The whole time I was on the street, I was your daughter. I'm not going to do my recovery as your daughter." That's the best reason I've ever heard to go to another one. She asked me to come to her 20-year birthday with her. And I went. And I took 2 handkerchiefs. I knew it was going to be a tough night, you know, one to wipe the snot and one to wipe the tears away, you know. And she got up there and shared. And pretty quick, I've forgotten which one's which, and I got snot all over my forehead. I'm bawling like an old lady at somebody's funeral, you know, and or a fat man when they close the buffet line. I But she's got 20 years. She lives in Arizona. Amazing. And I've been gifted with this stuff. You know, when I retired from work, I was already doing H&I work at that point. And, you know, they asked me to come to speak sometimes. And recently they had asked me, and I went and spoke at a treatment center that was for teenagers. And it was a very exclusive treatment center. And that's why there's a reason for everybody to be in the fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your history is. If you go with an H&I commitment to me, there will be someone in that room who can hear you that can't hear me. But I don't do real well in treatment centers for teenagers, you know, and my message is much clearer if I go to a detox. And when I retired from work, I told my sponsor I was happy because I could do more things for the fellowship. And a week later, I got a call from Moscow, Russia, saying, can you come to Russia and spend 3 weeks traveling around speaking? And I said, can I get into prisons there? And they said, yeah, we can get you in. And so I went and traveled around Russia and fell in love with the fellowship in Russia, you know. And they took me into a prison. The guy taking me in said, we haven't been able to get a meeting in that building there yet. And I said, why not? He said, well, everybody in there is convicted of cannibalism. Okay, let's go the other way. And I met people that were just amazing. And, you know, they are us. And I fell in love with these people because they were excited and impassioned. And it was so much that I came back and I told my sponsor next year they're having their 25th anniversary of Narcotics Anonymous in Russia. We're going. And so we went to St. Petersburg for the next year and did the same things. Traveled around and spoke at jails and treatment, you know, and meetings. It was a moving thing, but I would have never had that. You know, my idea of traveling when I was using was going down to New Mexico or Arizona and, you know, bringing it back to here. And so I've been given this gift, and I can't tell you why, and I don't know what. But when the virus hit, I realized, you know, I fully admit sometimes I become a human doing rather than a human being. And I'm just a busy little sucker, you know? Well, I ain't a little sucker, but I'm a busy sucker. But when this hit, I had to rethink how I was going to be of service. I still sponsor a number of men, and we use Zoom. You know, I sponsor them all around the country. But in the Zoom meetings, man, I'm a big old bear. You know, we're in the Zoom meeting, we're in a face-to-face meeting. You're probably not going to get out without giving me a hug. And, you know, I was telling David the other day that one of the men I'm closest to had been locked down since he was in his 20s. He was in his 40s now, and he walked up to me at a meeting, and he was in one of the gangs and was in the structure and stuff. And he walked up to me at a meeting, and he was a hard-looking motherfucker. Oh, excuse me. He was a hard-looking guy. Sometimes I use strong language. I even use words like overdose and death. So compared to that, a few hells and dams don't matter. But he said, I want what you got. Will you show me how to do it? And today he's off paper. He's off parole for the first time since he was in his 20s. And I haven't done it. All I've done is been there, you know. And we've gone to meetings together. And we travel around. He comes to my house and we, you know, assassinate somebody's character that we, you know, both know. And then we talk about spiritual principles. So I'm thinking, I would just like to close with, I owe my life to Narcotics Anonymous. You know, I'm obviously more mature than I was when I came in. I don't know, some days that's not a good thing. And I'm at my ending stage. And all I can think of is, how am I going to carry the message up to that last day? And, I don't need any sympathy. I don't need any of that. I'm having the time of my life. If I don't laugh hard enough to blow snot bubbles at least once a week, and I'm still young, every once in a while, my wife just turns around and looks at me and says, "You are so juvenile." Now, doesn't that tell you that I'm young? And we've been together a number of years, and 30. And so I owe that to the people that kept the porch light on. When I turned the corner and looked down the road to that last house on the block, the porch light was on. And it's my job to make sure that that light stays on, to give back, because I get to keep what I have by giving it back. And I walked into that house and you guys told me, "You know what, we got a room for you. It's right up these 12 steps." That's the good news. The bad news is there ain't no bellhops. You got to carry your own baggage. And that's the way it worked for me. People cheered for me and they said, "You can do it, you can do it, you can do it." And, if you're not involved in service, remember I had 2 years abstinent when I finally found the fellowship. And what I found was that I could not live life with or without drugs. Being without drugs was the most miserable 2 years of my life. I spent all day, every day, not using drugs, and I was raw material when I came in. My sponsor said, "Get a job." And I said, "God, I had one once. I didn't like it." And he said, "No, it's part of our program. You'll be self-supporting. We're not only self-supporting, you need to be." And I went and got a job. And I'm telling you the truth. At the end of the day, when they said, "We'll see you tomorrow," I felt like crying. I didn't know you had to do it 2 days in a row. They said, "Get a job." And, my sponsor had told me, "Don't lie on the job application." And it always kills me about the job application, because they give you this great big page for jobs you've had, for work experience, and this little teensy square for arrests. I mean, come on. But he told me, don't lie. And I worked for the federal government. I worked at the Veterans Hospital for many years, for 30-something years. Anyway, so I didn't lie. And it took a year to get the waivers all the way back to Washington, D.C., where they could put me on something besides temporary. But that was really good advice, because when 9/11 happened, my job became highly classified and highly, I worked with computers. I'm not highly classified, but I worked with computers, and I had to do an interview. And they brought down FBI agent and all this kind of stuff, and they did this interview. But because I had not lied on my application, they couldn't release me. And you know what all that time with that computers taught me to do? I put up the first website for our area here. God, it was ugly. Oh, Lord. I knew how to make the buttons work the way they're supposed to work. But my wife says, we both have our color sense. She has hers and I have none. And finally somebody came in and said, "Larry, could I help you with that?" And I said, "Well, please. I could see it was ugly." But, and it went through there. And, I also, when they are not in lockdown, I go to a meeting at the VA hospital, because that's where I come from. That's the people I know. And I go up there once a week. But I learned when I was working there, we have to be careful in that. I was in a meeting with the director of the hospital, and one of the guys from the ward came by, saw me in the office, and jumped on in and started talking to me about Narcotics Anonymous, and how I was going to be at the meeting, and how he was fired up. And I said, "I'll talk to you later." And the meeting ended rather quickly. But the catch for that meeting was, a week later, his office manager called me and said, "Larry, I got a son that's in trouble, and I hear through the grapevine that you can help." Who knows how our higher power is going to work? Just before they closed it all down, they started a new thing in our prison where they bring all of the prisoners to one prison and have a parole fair. So I got to meet to everybody that was going out either on expiration or on parole. And I would give them a schedule for the city they were going to, and one of our pamphlets, staying clean on the outside. And it was great, every single one of them, and I would talk to them. And one guy, he said, "Oh, I don't need that. I've been clean a year. I won't need that at all." And his mother and dad were with him. As he walked away, his mother walked up to the table and said, "Give it to me." Uh, I said, good thinking, Ma." And I don't know whether it helped. Our founder said that we're just sowing the seeds. That's what we're doing. And if at some time it doesn't work now, but they hear that it will work, they know where to go. And I'm going to close here a little early. I just want to say, if you're not involved, just start getting involved. Do it with a passion. Do it with a smile. Do it with a laugh. You're going to do plenty of crying. You might as well have some time and do it. I still publish the schedules. I still do that. My home group still hangs flyers in the laundromats and places like that. We can use our structure to support us. And I really am thoroughly, I think I said that before, our literature is very important. But the message of hope comes one addict to another addict. And that's where we do it. Our literature will support us in doing it, but we need to do it. And if you got a lot of years clean and you say, "Well, I go to one meeting a week and I'm there if anybody wants to talk to me," come on, man. Grab that newcomer and buy them coffee. Don't ask them if they can afford coffee. Say, "Come on, I want to buy you a cup." I buy people coffee and I don't drink that shit. But I think that's how we will grow and how we will do. Our fellowship is facing some challenges, some real challenges. And I think that we're in a period of change. And I'm going to close with that. Thank you for letting me share. I'm sorry I was babbling on like this. I'm still looking at it. My hands are shaking. And damn, I told my wife recently, she was giving me my orders, and I said, "I've been to Vietnam, don't you?" And she just smiled and giggled. And I said, "I've been to jail, don't you?" And she just smiled and giggled. And I said, "Okay, honey, I'll go do it now." Thank you for letting me share.